Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for coming back to the Embrace Life Boldly podcast. As you know, I am your life coach, transformation, and spiritual development coach, Tammy Ward. And like this episode is all about everything for me, for you, and for everyone in between. So today I have the honor, you guys, the honor to have my mentor, my spiritual coach, my psychic awareness guru, Lori here, and she's just going to go through a little bit about her journey, her life, what she's done. We're going to dive into some spiritual confidence, which is something that's coming up on my website soon. Hopefully, Lori will join me if she will, if I can talk her into it. But above all, guys, this episode is really just for us to understand that as we're developing into our higher self, having that awareness, grounding into our intuition, a lot of times we just need that extra push, that extra confidence to get us over the hump of our human world. So, without further ado, Lori, thank you so much for being here. Welcome, 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 in our lovely basket of embracing life. And I would love if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about your journey, and then we'll start with a little conversation.
First, I want to say thank you, and for having me on your
Yeah.
podcast. And also, I don't know what it is about you, but every time, particularly the journey we've been on
Mhm.
with the psychic development, and just you as a person, you have impressed me in terms of how far and how fast and how deeply you embody so many of your own gifts. And it makes me cry. You can probably a little bit when I see you, because it's very moving to just witness who you are. So I just want to say that and thank
No, thank you so much. You'll get us both crying here in a second,
you.
I'm sure.
I know, I'm gonna be both crying. So as far as my own journey goes, I would say that other than, when I was a child, I had a few, I had some prophetic dreams, seeing things before they happened. I had some, um, you know, vague memories of guides being there. But in general, as I kind of had, because of lots of trauma going on, I kind of had blacked out a lot of it, or tuned out, right? And when when I when I was around 25 or so, I suicided. And I say I suicided, not attempted, because I actually was successful, but they brought me back. And and so something you don't want to be really successful at. You may want to be successful at a lot of things, but
Right.
and so when they revived me, um, it took a moment. I went to a very beautiful place that was so blissed out where I was. I did not see anything like a tunnel of light or anything like this, but it was just this like a euphoric feeling, so beautiful. And then I awoke and realized that I was in the hospital, and I was, intubated, and I was in the intensive care, and and looked around and went, oh God, I'm back here, because I wasn't very um, much embracing life. For most of my life, I had like a slight, like, suicidal tendency, like wanted out because
Mhm.
of it was too much to digest what was going on. And the beauty of all of this, and I do mean that, that is it took a couple, it started a sort of kind of a trickling effect. Um, and I started to see and hear things and see beyond the veil. And one of and one of the ways, just as a side note, that I was trying to cope with life was through lots of drugs and alcohol, and that's what led to the suicide. And um, and when I sobered up, it really came. The psychic stuff was just coming like gangbusters. And I remember one of my earlier memories, like about a year into being sober, my friend was there and she was also sober about the same time, and we were at my apartment, and I looked down the hallway and I was thinking, why does the shoe rack look like a Native American chief? And he's got this long white headdress, and he's got like a white wolf or dog, it looks like. And then without saying what I saw, I asked her, she, what do you see in the hallway? She goes, oh, there's this Native American chief, and he's got this wolf with him. And so then we went like this, and he floated out in the living room, and that was like, oh my God, I live alone. Could you figure out a different way to do this? And sure enough, over time, that being, his name was Chief Great White Eagle, he ended up being the one that eventually who would do for the first 15 to 20 years of my of being an intuitive guide. He would do most of the readings through me. I was what they call a conscious channel. I would experience my consciousness off in the back of my head, and different beings would come in and speak, and I could feel, and I would even be a naysayer at times, be like, is that really, they're saying that, is that really true? And the minute more I would question it, the more like I feel like a little hiccup in the transmission, and so I had to really get out of the way for it to happen. And those myriad guides taught my initial versions of the psychic development class, starting like in 1996 or something. I started, and they would teach the different guides had their different niche places, and they would teach, like Merlin would come in and teach about magic, and Yogananda would come in once, and it kind of rattled me a little. We had Mother Mary and Yeshua came in on the same night, but I was really moved by that because I had such a connection to that when I was growing up as a Catholic kid. And I even felt a little like, oh my God, is this supposed to be happening? And it was the most beautiful, beautiful thing. And again, these are master guides, just in case anyone's listening. These beings are master guides, not because they're better or like it's not that kind of hierarchy, but it's more like they're more self actualized. They're aware of themselves as God, which is what we are. Okay? And the one thing that was very moving for me, part of the journey from that time when I saw the Native American chief, within about a number of months from that, maybe a year, I met the man who would become my husband, and he took me to see a trance medium, which I had never been to see. This is before I was doing any of this as it's like late 80s. Before I was doing any of this as a vocation. And he took me there, and I thought it was because what I was for the first part of my adult life was, excuse me, was a professional actor, and film and TV and things like that. And I didn't, I, the industry in itself makes fun of this kind of thing. And I was also in comedy, like very strongly in comedy improv, and I would make fun of the very thing that I do now. So be careful what you make fun of, because you will become that. Right. And then I went to this trance medium thinking like this, like, oh yeah, let's see. Sure enough, this being, it was so profound. The beings that came through him were, he was a fairly hefty man, and through his being came this etheric, beautiful voice of these guides that I recognized that voice at home. They happened to be Pleiadians, that being, and that I'm weeping. I used to have, it was like old school cassette tape. They would do these things on, and I played that cassette tape like till it, like, pretty much the wheels come off the wagon. And you can barely hear because I'm sobbing because it was so profound. And I ended up studying with that man, and his full name was Jota Lamsa Matar, and we called him Mo, or Matar. And he was formerly Paul McLean was his other name. And he was profoundly gifted. And a trance meeting, for those people who don't know, is when you go completely to sleep, you go completely out, and beings come through and talk, but the medium themselves are not privy to what is being said, right? And so I studied with him for a couple of years, and at the end of that, he looked around and said, he looked around at the last of us that were there, maybe 15 or so people, and he said, there are two of you who will be doing this for a living. And he points to me and then my then husband, and we go, no, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. I'm an actor. He's a professional magician and an acrobat. I mean, no, we're not. And so then within a short time after that, we graduated. That was our graduation day. They said that. I'm like, no. And we, like, within a short time, within a year, I noticed Lawrence, my then husband, was like, we had a profound trip to Kauai that triggered and turned on all these switches in him. And he was channeling, and I had a brand new camera I bought, like a video camera. And I filmed all of it. And I'm like, that's what it is. That's what they're talking about. I'm just going to be a gateway for Lawrence to be a trance medium. I had no idea. Again, some psychic I am, no idea.
Yeah. Right.
This is really a good point, by the way.
Yeah.
Like that you can have amazing gifts from one, not know that you have that. You don't, like, it's like I always say, like describing water to a fish. You're so gifted, you have no idea that, you're looking at me, like this. Those are the best kind of psychics. And I'm not tooting my own horn, but
Toot it.
and right, but those are the ones I really trust, because they're like, really? I don't know this. I'm just getting this thing about you, and and so Lawrence became this amazing trance medium, go completely to sleep, and I was, oh, this is great. And then lo and behold, within a couple of years after we divorced, amicably, he's a very kind and beautiful human, and I found myself going, oh, well, I guess I can do these readings, and started doing them, and then teaching psychic development as I had been taught. And as I did that, it was people were coming up to me, having in these groups. And this is really an important part of this whole story for all of you who are watching this. Anybody who you're aware of your gifts, but you don't have confidence, like Tammy was saying about spiritual confidence, people came up to me after these channelings. I've had a regular channeling once a week for, I don't know, 8 or 10 years. And they would say, this was profound, and this happened. And I'm like, because I'm channeling, and because you remain neutral, particularly even as a conscious channel, you have to remain neutral for the information to come through, or for the guide to transmit their message. And so for me, it seems so, just when you're in that neutral backseat thing, it's like, really, is this, I'm not sure, is this really anything profound? And they were profoundly moved. And I never listened to those tapes again, old school. We had cassette tapes. I had boxes of them. And after one of them in point, and I just want to bring this up, and I'll bring this to a close. But yeah, this portion to a close. After one of the channelings, where there was a whale, a being that identified itself as a whale oversoul, an oversoul for all whales, came through and was talking through me and speaking about what whales do, that they swim these ley lines, and the act of communicating into other dimensions, what is going on in Earth, and keeping a balance through their whale song, the frequency of it. It was profound. And then it made all these sounds, these whale sounds. And while it's making the sound, I'm back here going, well, I could make that. So maybe I'm just, how do I know that this is a whale over? So I'm still questioning. I want you all to know this. This is something that maybe it's a lifetime thing, and just get out of the way. You let it flow. And case in point, at the end of that channeling, someone comes up and says, I know you don't ever listen to the tapes after, but you need to listen to this. And I'm like, no, no. And they said, no, you really do. It was profound. And lo and behold, I listened to it, and there were layers of whale voices coming through me. There's nothing that I could have done vocally to do that, right?
Incredible.
And so just to let you know that it's, even then I was, after many, many years doing it, still going, I don't yeah. So, and when you're in it, when you're in alignment with your highest divine nature, or you're getting into that place of divine neutrality where you're not polarized to anything. If you get into that, as you get into that place, the beauty is, if you're really in alignment, it will feel like nothing, because it's your natural state in a sense, right? Not in a sense, it actually is. So that, I just want to put that out there. And for me, I'm still doing this, and I still question. I'm always looking, and I'm not questioning that, am I an intuitive? I get that now. I mean, it took, probably decades or whatever.
Right.
But it's I'm questioning, where's my come from, making sure I'm in as neutral place as possible before I give a reading to somebody, because I don't want my opinions or my human skew on things to sully that reading, or to have it not be from the highest truth that I can access. But
No,
that's a big
absolutely. I love that. No, that was beautiful. I mean, we're pretty much done. Thank you so much. No, answered that psychic ability answered almost every single question I had written down for you to answer. But I just want to thank you so much, and I appreciate the openness that you just shared with all of us today. It takes a lot to come from a place when you're there, and then to open up and have that near death experience, and then keep continuing to search, right? To search for something that's more than just you, realizing that we are more than just this human experience. And that's the beauty of it. I mean, there was something you said in there that I absolutely loved, when you were talking about the conscious channeler. And one, that is obviously one thing you helped me do. I mean, we went through it. I first was a trance. I fell asleep. I didn't like it. It felt off. I did not like not being in control. Who knew? And so, but with you, I continued to work on it and work on it. And I think the most beautiful part that helped to build my confidence and the spiritual development that I learned from you was to ask the guides, tell them, I do not want to go completely out. I want to be present. I want to be able to hear you. I want to stay neutral and not be in it, but I want to be a part of it. I needed to feel that, and to know that some of the confidence, that spiritual confidence, comes from knowing that we can ask them anything. And you said it perfectly when you said, these are great masters, right? They're no higher, they're no lower. They're the same as us. It's just that they had more experiences, more human lives to be able to develop their own intuitiveness, or come back to it. I'll say come back to it, because even though this amazing course that you teach is about development, right? It's intuitive development. It's really helping someone develop their own individual way of how they can learn all this, because you don't have to have a near death experience. You don't have to have anything like that. It's to me, I feel like it's about understanding that if we stay neutral, so much more information can come of all the questions we've always asked ourselves our whole entire lives, and that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And so I'm forever grateful. I'm forever grateful for you. I cannot, I mean, you opened myself up, you opened my business up, everything. But I'm gonna digress with all that right now. But and from your experience of all the ones that you've taught, before me, after me, during me, and anything like that, is there a common do you notice a common thread or a common thought that most of us have when we're learning and
Oh,
developing?
that's great. That's a great question, and I would have to say yes. And the one, and there might be one other thing, the main one is I spoke to it a little bit, but it's this, it's exactly your topic, spiritual competence, when you just
Mhm,
mentioned that we are taught so most people are not aware when they're going into an intuitive, when they're going into one of their intuitive gifts. And for those people who don't know, you have clairvoyance, the ability to see, which includes what you see in your dreams, in addition to seeing a Native American chief in your apartment. The huge.
the
So
usual.
the huge. Um, and there's there's that, the clairvoyance. And then there's clairaudience. When you can hear, with some people actually hear, and I was in the beginning hearing it, like I'd be driving in my car alone and I would hear um, my guides talk to me and it would freak me out, right?
Mhm,
And then I told them, can you come a different way? Now, this is the boundaries that Tammy's talking about, the boundaries that are so important. You didn't
mhm,
use the word boundary, but that's what you were talking about.
mhm.
You decide how
Yeah.
you wish to be of service, how you wish to be, because your humanness and you as a human, who you were the one who had the courage to incarnate. You were the one who went through all of the
Mhm,
pain and suffering that caused you to maybe be more compassionate, more whatever, right?
mhm.
And so the clear so this is where it's really important. You tell them, like, this is freaking me out a little bit, like maybe later you come back that way, but and so there's clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, which is when you get a body feel, like a for things, people who get a yes or a no in their body, like they go like, oh, that doesn't feel true, or yes, this feels true, or I'm getting this, and it, like they'll get guided messages can come through, but it's like more their barometer is their entire body. They're like, it's like a body sense. And very similar to, like, if you went by an alleyway and you get a sense, don't go down there. Well, there's a survival instinct that's a little different. It's
Yeah.
maybe tangentially connected, but then it's more about, oh, don't go down that alley because your friend's down the next alley and you need to meet with them and talk
Yeah.
about something, right? Then the other one, claircognizance, when things just drop in and you don't know how you know them, but you just know, right? And all those clairs, um, most people don't know. The ones who really don't know, I found over all of the students, all the reading, people who are the most likely not to be aware that they have psychic abilities are the clairsentients, because they feel it in their body
Mhm.
and they may not see the burning bush or hear the angels sing, and
Yeah.
they think, oh, I'm not psychic, and it's like they're way. And to be in this body is the whole name of the game, by the way, just side note.
Yeah.
And tell me, what do they have in common? You said, what is a common, like, kind of hiccup that most
Yeah.
things? And it's not knowing. And the reason you don't know, just something to keep in mind, to have deep compassion for yourself around this. The reason is everything, even well-meaning parents, even parents who are not necessarily cruel or abusive or whatever, but even well-meaning parents will sometimes, they begin programming us
Mm.
from early on,
Yeah.
right? Like, you're programmed to seek an external authority as a barometer for your reality,
Mhm.
when in fact we're all born with one or more of those clairs really high, and you
Yeah.
can develop the ones that are a little more dormant or latent, right? And the that is one of the things that and we're programmed like all day long, what, on this
Yeah.
media, on the news, what does it, everything. It's all it, and there are whole whole swaths of agencies that even employ those things to, because our brains are super receptive. And this is where meditation comes
Yeah.
in case you were wondering, what can we do, like what, how do we combat that? And I want to see if there, I think there was one other thing that, that's um, a common hiccup for people. But the meditation, the reason I'm a big advocate of meditating, clearing your field, anchoring, um, getting your mind offline as best as possible. I know that's super hard in a world that tries to keep your mind on a little Ferris wheel,
Yeah.
like a little habit trail, a little mouse on it. If we just take the time to do that, then you get out of your own way. It's the mental body that has the programming in it, right?
Yeah.
Your true nature is intact. It is never, nothing anyone has ever done or said to you has ever broken you in any intrinsic way. It never touched the
Hmm.
true
That soul
source.
part of it. So I was just saying that true self, that soul being that's inside of this human body. Yeah.
Our essential nature has
Yeah.
never been damaged by anything. It only uses
Mhm.
everything for growth, right?
Mhm.
And it doesn't mean that what happened to anyone who's listening, any trauma, that kind of thing, doesn't mean it's not um, that that you should have deep compassion for what you went through and that kind of thing.
Right.
But to understand that um, when, particularly when you meditate, or there are people who do journeys with
Mhm.
various like teacher plants and things like that, who understand, who have had experiences of this, as well as people who do it naturally, with which you
Mhm.
can with meditation. Um,
Well, I think the
and
beautiful thing about meditation is that it can be done in any way you feel comfortable, right? I mean, I think that when you talk about what we learn by what we're conditioned with, even though
Mhm.
a lot of things out there, are like, okay, sit this way, sit cross-legged, do this. It's like it's also to understand that meditation and stillness can come with however you feel comfortable. I think for both you and I, we don't like to sit crisscross applesauce. Like I don't like
Yeah.
to. I don't feel comfortable that way. I feel comfortable. Actually sitting straight up. Sometimes my hands are in my lap. Sometimes I'm holding my hands together out of love. And I think that that's what most people are not. It's that confidence of like, okay, I must do it like everybody else. I must do it like this person. I must do it like this guru. I
You
must
must
do it
do
like
it like the
Tammy.
Buddha.
Right, I must do it like Lori, I must do it like Tammy, and it's like it's not about that, it's about finding your own way, and that awfully that sets the confidence as well, of creating your own space and your own breath work and your own ways of meditating to get to that neutral state, to be into that moment of taking it in. But I love, love, love that you brought up all the clairs. I mean, there's so many people out there that you would not even imagine that have no idea. They just know clairvoyance, and that's pretty much it. So I'm
Right.
so glad you bring up the clairsentient because I think there's a lot of times as we're growing up, we're taught not to feel. We're taught to don't cry, give them your toy, give to others, don't say that, don't feel like that. That's horrible to feel that way. So we get kind of disconnected from that clairsentience, from that feeling of something is doing something and helping me. My awareness is heightened, my intuition is going, but then we just immediately want to throw it away or immediately want to ignore it because we've just been so conditioned to do so.
Oh, and one piece to add on to that
Yeah.
point is the reason we allow ourselves to be entrained or programmed that way is there's a survival instinct that goes to seek the love and or approval, you know, of
Hmm.
the beings that ensure your survival. So
Yeah.
we will throw ourselves, there's like all kinds of psychological data that supports this. We will literally throw ourselves under a bus or become the
Yeah.
dysfunctional child if that is the way to ensure our survival or to ensure
Hmm.
any tiny bit of love coming our way or
Hmm.
approval. Like maybe you're a good child because you you shut up and you don't listen to any of your own feelings or whatever,
Yeah.
right? That's what they say, a good child. You're
Mhm.
not that. I wouldn't call that a good child. And
Yeah.
and the remember that the little one who did all those things and jumped through all the hoops and tried to look around for examples of who I should be. Oh, that person seems to get all the love. I'll be like that. That person seems to get all the love. And so have deep, the other piece I want to, if I may, do we have the
No,
time?
absolutely. Yeah, go right ahead. Yeah, absolutely.
An important part that people, and I want to also add something to the meditation discussion in a second, but important part that a lot of people, excuse me, see an important part of what people may not realize goes part and parcel with opening up your psychic ability and really kind of letting yourself out of the box, is if you'll get more bang for your buck and it will happen more quickly the more you are willing to be um, self-examined. And what I mean
Yeah.
by that is, so if you've done some work where you've done some healing, whether it's through traditional psychotherapy or other there's so many beautiful modalities I have done over my life that allowed me to quell some of the wounded, the wounded little voices that didn't get their needs met, whatever, that kind of still felt like they're alive. And again, not to go too far down the psychology hole here, but they felt like they were, so they were kind of alive and well. And I'm years old.
Yeah.
And, and they're still in there. And by us holding a space for those and becoming sort of doing whatever brand of healing really speaks to you, to allow yourself to develop the capacity to sort of hold all that and your experience, hold your how can I say this succinctly? Yeah, just holding space for all of that without allowing it to flood you. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen now and then. Something might trigger you, this kind of thing. But the more you do this, the more that when you go to get centered, you go into that meditation, or and then you go in to start to go into that space where you're going into that divine neutrality zone, which where you're not polarized, you're not attached to any outcomes, you're there, and you start to, you can then channel or do a straight, what I call straight read, which is you're getting the guidance and it's coming through, which is what I do a lot of the time these days. Or a channel or a trance medium, like a conscious channel or trance medium, whatever it is you do, it's really important that those many parts of you that might still be flooding you now and then, like an old emotional wound or these kind of things. It's really important that we address those for many reasons. But the carrot on the end of the stick is you will become a far better intuitive with just even doing whatever you need to do to address and heal and honor and integrate those wounded parts of the emotional body. Does that make sense?
Oh my gosh, that is so beautifully said. And I think there was a moment there where I felt like I was going into a meditative state because I was just so caught up into, what you were saying and remembering even through my teachings with you, like just how to go there, just how to basically just open your heart up and just open your heart up, relax the body, and just be in it and to see what comes up, setting those boundaries as you do, and knowing which way you want to hear it, see it, feel it, be in it to receive whatever information you are. It got me thinking about how we have to understand this shift. Because, as you said earlier, you were talking about how you still sometimes, try and find that confidence. And I do as well. I try to find, sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, am I really hearing this? Is this really right? Why is this
Mm,
coming up? Because sometimes it's like one of those things where exactly what we all hear, right? When you're thinking about a friend and then all of a sudden, boom, they call you out of the blue, or you hear something about them, all that's the intuitive, cycle that happens. And
right.
where do you think, and maybe this is a part of it, maybe it's not, it just got me thinking about times that we would talk about the difference between the ego and the intuitive. And
Hmm.
you mentioned, not having that attachment to an outcome. And that truly helped me immensely. Like I just don't have an attachment to any outcome of
Hmm.
whatever information I'm giving someone, however they're receiving it. I just allow, right? That's it.
Hmm.
But before then, before Lori, before you, before your course, I was very much hesitant to say certain things because I wouldn't understand it myself. And so when we talk about claircognizance and we talk about imagery and we talk about all the clairs,
Hmm.
how can we begin, just if you could just don't mind giving like a little tool to our audience about how they can begin to be like, okay, that's my ego, I know that is, or this is the intuitive, I
It's
feel that this is.
perfect, perfect thing. One thing to know about the egoic mind
Hmm.
is it always is attached to an outcome.
Hmm.
And its attachment is relative. It's always, the egoic mind is always disseminating some kind of information or bias some way or another, based on something that happened in the past or something it fears will happen in the future based on what
Mm.
happened in the past. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's
Yes,
not in
absolutely.
the present. And so that means, by definition, the egoic mind is not in the present moment, right? And
Hmm.
the place of us that, this is where meditation and some other things um, come in, is you kind of just begin to you're relaxing into the spaciousness of, as close as it's kind of, it takes a little bit for a moment, but you're going for sort of a no mind. And that no mind moment in a meditation, even of a seasoned meditator, might even just be 2 minutes or a minute,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Of like where it goes offline, and then it's like it's like a reset, and it allows you to come there, come into that neutral place. And you'll know this because you can then even view personal stuff or like visit it for a moment, and you won't be as charged. All the
Mm.
charge and all the push away or pulling towards or grabbing, that's all egoic mind. And our true nature doesn't need anything to be other than what it is. And I know that
Yeah.
sounds really, that can sound very insensitive, like especially if you're in a suffering place. Like let's say you go, oh, it is what it is, so I'm going to be comfortable with the fact that I don't have the rent and they're going to kick me out tomorrow. That
Hmm.
sounds like super insensitive if you put it in that
Hmm.
context.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that um, there's a place, just to, it's a wider, broader perspective where you can go, oh, I I can feel inside me that this is going to turn out well, even though it looks really crazy.
Hmm.
Right? If I look at it right now, it looks like something scary, or it looks like this. There's the our true nature is just love,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
It's just love. That's all it is, love with a capital L. And love has no moving parts. It's sort of, I've heard someone say, the doors of the heart turn inward, right? And love has
Hmm.
no moving parts. And when that is open and we're generating this field of love, and I consciously, pretty much every day, a number of times a day, am expanding my heart field in addition to other things like a grounding,
Hmm.
technique, and clearing my field and staying what I'm aligned with, what I choose to be aligned with in this
Hmm.
life, in this now. And when I um, when I'm in that space of love, it doesn't need anything. It understands you. It understands it. You are God. I'm God. We are all God in such a real way that we're a little fractal of God, having this experience as Lori, as Tammy, and it knows God doesn't have limiting beliefs. Like, do you understand? Like that there's no punitive God, not in my experience. I've not experienced anything that says anything is wrong with my experience. In other words, we can make choices, and choices sometimes have it like if you're in a frequency of this and you I heard, by the way, I just want to put this in the conversation. It's probably a conversation for another time, but I heard this said recently is that the frequency of, like, let's say when somebody says karma, whatever, the frequency is, if you're in this place where you murdered somebody, you have that frequency of that particular that little energy of murder, right? And then that's why someone murders. It's not like an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. It's that you want to dance in that frequency, so that's what happens there.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so to get back to this conversation, it's like the more love you can generate, and that means being willing to let go of your story. Guess where the story lives? Big surprise, spoiler alert, the ego, right?
Yeah.
Story lives in there, and that story will run us around. It's like a Faraday chamber. Faraday chamber, it doesn't let anything in, nothing goes out. Frequency. And it's like it'll go round and round, and it's a sort of a self-affirming reality inside this little bubble. That's what the ego.
It is, yeah.
We'll be like, yeah, you're the smartest person I know. Yeah, that person stinks. Oh yeah, and it's like goes around and around, and it'll collaborate, whatever, based on nothing. It's all arbitrary assessment. Arbitrary assignment, rather, of meaning to things. That's what the egoic mind is. It says, this is good because 9 out of 10 people I know and love say that is good, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so back to this conversation with the original, you made a comment, and I wanted
well,
to.
I know I had said, is it what tool can you give us? Give the but you gave like 5 tools, and so I say this. So thank you for that in that whole conversation. You gave us the tool to be open-hearted, to like go within with love, right? You gave it. You helped us understand the tool of that meditating and being in that space several times a day, right? It will allow us to build that confidence and build that trust in ourselves up to stay out of the arbitrary world. You also gave us the tool of knowing that our ego is all conditioned beliefs that was put and projected upon us. And then oftentimes we get wrapped up in it and we call it karma, or we call it, the genetic karma, whatever people call it, and to be intuitive and to develop that and to have the confidence in that spirituality is just understanding that it all starts with you.
Yeah.
That's it. You already are that. So those are like 4 or 5 different amazing things that you just said was phenomenal, because I think you're right. I think oftentimes, the confidence comes from like, people are going to think I'm crazy. How is this really happening? Where does this really come from? And for you and me, as you know, during our mine came from because I was taught how to lie. I was taught how to manipulate. I had to cover up my bruises. I had to cover up the fact of what was being done to me in my home. That neglect, that abandonment, the abuse. And so by doing that, I got so used to the story. I got so used to being attached to the story because I wanted others to believe it. And so therefore, because I wanted others to believe it, I didn't believe it myself. But then once, as your tool, disassociate yourself from the story, you will disassociate yourself from the ego, and therefore your heart will be open to learn and to hear and to see and feel.
And one thing I want to add in here, it's like a kind of simple hack people can do. It sounds
we
really
love hacks. We love hacks.
Okay, So sometimes people, you say meditation, they go, "Ah,"
I
right?
know
They're like
they
this.
do. Or they go ego. Oh my God, my ego. Yes, my ego.
Like, blah,
Yeah.
blah, 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 right?
Blah, blah, blah. Me. Yeah.
And the ego's like, let's not do Um, but what I want to say, one of the simple hacks, and someone reminded me of this recently. Um, I just love this. I'm a big fan of yoga, right? And I should do it more even than should. You hear that story?
Yeah. You see that
More than I
story? There
need.
you go. It starts right there.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, did you see that? Okay, so then but the yoga was invented. I was talking to somebody who was just like such a dedicated yogi, and she goes, a yogini, I should say, and she was reminding me of that. The yoga, the reason they do that before the meditation is the more you tire out your body, right? If
Mm,
you go work out full on, full on, to the
hmm.
point where you're like,
Yeah.
have you ever been that delightful, exhausted thing when you sweat?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And you go full chicken, and it's like, and then you sit down, you will go places like Dr. Seuss said, oh, the places you'll go. The good places.
The good place.
Um,
Yeah.
and that's like one of the hacks, and that's why yoga always preceded the meditation. It was to tire out the body,
Mm,
because all that tension, there's that body mind connection where, like, if you get all that loosened up, everything moving, and
mhm.
then you sit still, you will go
Yeah.
places. And that's the thing. And this is also, another hack way you can do it. Um, and this works really well with kids, which is funny because kids don't want to sit still either. Like, there are some kids, there's occasional, I've met little gurus who are amazing that can sit and they can do shit. Um, but if you do spinning, if anybody out there knows whirling dervishes, they would have one hand is down this way
Hmm.
and one hand here, right? And the palm is open, and they're spinning, and it's uh, clockwise.
Hmm.
I just double check. Yeah, clockwise. And so they're doing this, and this is the anchor. This guy's down, and you try to have it like where the shoulders are.
Yeah.
And you're doing this. You spin, and you spin 33 times, staring at the hand. That helps you not get dizzy. And then you drop into a ball, and you don't drop onto a heap on the floor, and don't move, and see what comes to mind. Sometimes that,
Wow.
and I used to do this. I used to do a little bit of psychic development with my friend's kids. She was like all for it, and I was like, and they were already pretty psychic, and they would do this, and they would just drop, and then they would start. I say, "What do you see?" And then they would
Hmm.
start talking about all these things that were confirmable things, like things that
Yeah.
they had no way of knowing, like that
Yeah.
the mother had Archangel Ariel around her, a huge angel. He's one of the biggest ones, and had this. And the little girl, without having known that linearly, she goes, "Oh, I see a very big angel. He's as big as our house. And he's a,
Hmm.
they would go,
Yeah.
so sweet." Anyway,
So beautiful. Yeah.
little
Yeah.
hacks,
So beautiful.
yeah.
More hacks and more hacks and more tools and more lessons. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. And thank you for, I mean, I love you. You know that. You are amazing. You completely shifted how I am intuitive in my abilities. And I just needed to like have you on here so everyone else can know who you are as well. And so how can people find you? How can they reach out to you?
They can go to my website, which is illuminedhuman.me. And the
Okay.
me is really you. It's not illuminedhuman.me. And probably you can put that in the show notes.
Yep,
And I
absolutely.
also have some psychic development classes coming up beginning
Good.
in October. And they can also call me. We could put the phone number in the show notes.
Great. Yeah.
And you can also get me at the email address is illuminedhuman@gmail.
Beautiful.
And if you just put, I ask that people put a little, 2 little asterisks in the subject matter, and then put if they're looking for a reading,
Yeah.
and
Great.
have some
Yeah. Yeah.
message back.
Yeah, because I know that you do readings, you do developments. What
Mhm.
else is there? Anything else?
So I do,
Healings?
right. I do
Yeah.
one-on-one readings with people. I'm going to be also bringing back to life. There was a group I was doing that I just offer gratis, like especially if people want to get a feel for who I am and what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's called the Aware Nest,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll be on Thursday evenings, and it's just by Zoom, and we drop in pretty deep for about an hour, maybe sometimes it's a little over, and
Mm-hmm.
I just see what guidance wishes to come through,
Wow.
and it's pretty helpful to kind of get a I channel for that with the intention of providing frequencies that can help accelerate people's path in terms of to their
Yeah.
self-actualization, you know,
I love
um,
that. So
which is
beautiful.
a fancy way of just saying unearthing the truth of
Yeah.
your gifts, and that who you are is magnificent. We just forgot, and I mean that
We have.
truly. It sounds
No,
very
I
airy,
know.
it's so true. And I see, the beauty in you, and I love that
No.
he sees the beauty in you.
Oh, that is a beautiful phrase. I thank you for that. Yeah, and I'm going to add on to that for just a little bit.
Sure.
Just to go into the development part for me, and I know you do it with many others, but you taught me how to channel. You taught me how to do automatic writing. You taught me how to do remote viewing. You taught me how to trust and listen. You taught me how to heal myself through so many different ways. Like, now I'm gonna cry. Now I'm gonna get emotional. Um, so there's so many things that's added into that. And so you listening or you watching, if you guys are ready to begin or even just to learn a little bit more about those things, reach out to Lori, get a part into her world, so that way you can begin to have that confidence in yourself. So
Right.
Lori, I thank you so much. There is so much love here that it goes beyond,
Mm.
and
Oh,
I so appreciate you.
so back at you, Miss Tam.
Mm, thank you so
Every time
much.
I see you, it's a moving experience.
Always, always, always. Will you be well today?
Thank you so much for having me. It's
Thank
been
you.
really fun. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.